Hello and welcome to Patrox Radio. I'm your host Patrox, and today we're getting into one of the 12 companies that we glossed over. We're part of the Houston CCS Alliance. Today we're covering Air Liquide. A cursory look let me know that the average pay was around $61,362, or round up, it's about $29.50 per hour in the US. Entry level salary is around $36,000 a year, and top earners make over $104,000 per year. Different departments can also affect your salary, of course. Air Liquide employees average about 66,400 people across 75 countries. That's just a very basic cursory glance of something you'll find on Google. But I, ever so diligently, decided I wanted to look into a bit more than just that. These are just very basic numbers that could be easily fudged and not easily sourced. So I took a look not only on their website to see what they claim, but I also took a look into their history of violations. So let's go over their site first. Now, there's 1,001 things I could dig up on this site that could tell us 1,000,001 things. But the only important factor for me right now is two sections. If you go to the airliquide.com, you'll find two different sections. One that's hydrogen and one that says sustainable development. As far as hydrogen goes, covers a topic that we will probably make its own video on in the future, which is another excuse that they're trying to use instead of carbon capture and storage as a way to legitimize still using fossil fuels by incorporating, hydrogen back into it. Which, by the way, just winds up still taking more fuel to create this fuel that we eventually burn, which all contributes even more CO2. So it doesn't help in the end. And then, of course, you can look under sustainable development, and then you'll find all kinds of different data points that you can look up. Act for a Sustainable Future, their ethics, their safety, their human rights, environmental data, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can keep going. So I took one cursory glance at environmental data, and I am looking at a chart that they have. Now, they display everything about their, accordance to things like the Kyoto Protocol, the greenhouse gas protocols, carbon accounting method. They also use independent auditors when it comes to their CO2 emissions and stuff. So they have this beautiful little graphic that seems incredibly misleading to me. It shows that yes, most of their CO2 production happens within their control directly through the processes of their air separation units, the product transportation, and their hydrogen producing unit or hydrogen production units. These things tend to, in combination with the energy it takes to run them, also produce their own set values or own set amount of CO2 emissions. Both of these two combined, the energy it takes to make all this, plus the direct act of their processes for their products, both of these two combined, as they put it, scope 1 and scope 2, seem to be about 36 metric tons of CO2, combined. There's scope 3, which usually is us, the consumers in this case, measure out at about 22.2 megatons of CO2. So combined, we're looking at almost 60 megatons of CO2 per year with these emissions. It's crazy. Now, at the bottom, underneath these scope graphs, they display two different arrows, which, again, you can just go into the site and look at it yourself. One that shows the metric tons that they do with their processes, and the one tries to mislead you. This is the one that I hate, that says how much that they've avoided since then. And one thing that they point out directly is that due to updates and advancements in their processes, due to greater efficiencies in travel, in communication, in transportation, blah blah blah, they've been able to avoid 15.1 megatons of CO2 per year, which again doesn't really mean much to me because they have this much bigger number that really feels like the excuse of saying direct customer action means that we can write off 64.2 megatons from our hands because the customer is using it, not us. But the way that they word it is avoid emissions from end uses, which usually means that the customer is using it. And that's one of the big things about this. Once picked up on that, everything else just felt shaky. Everything else just felt off. Nothing is easily described here. If you see this thing, it's never described when you scroll down farther because they'll describe that they have different what's the word? They have different methods by which they calculate a lot of these things. So of course everything can be skewed. They do put that caveat in there, but for the most part, their numbers seem pretty spot on, except for how they word who's responsible for things. Um, but that's basic information. We could spend 3, 4 plus hours just digging into all of this. To be productive, I wanted to do something a bit different. I looked on a little website called violationtracker.goodjobsfirst.org. And I highly suggest any of you looking to work in a major field or in a major job, look them up first through this website. Because through this website, just for Air Liquide, I can understand and look and research every penalty that has been accrued by the parent company or any subsidiary company that, for better or worse, the parent company is going to be responsible for. So I found two massive ones and then a bunch of little ones, but all together from various agencies and complaints and lawsuits throughout the years, we have a combined amount of environment related offenses, 46 records of that, combining to a total of 14,600, or I'm sorry, 14,614,639. Safety related offenses rack up to about 55 on record, and that amounts to 568,533. There's also employment related offenses at a number of 13, with a total penalty cost of 337,564, and one consumer protection related offense at $50,000. So scrolling down, they'll break down each one by the amount, by the year, by the agency, and what type of offense it's related to. So I just picked out the two top ones. One that is $7 million, and one that's about $5 million. So this one that's about $5 million. Let's go to that one real quick. In June 21st, 2001, hey, it's the day of radiance. Um, Air Liquide settled a case in which it was charged with releasing ozone-depleting gases from industrial processes, refrigerant systems at 22 facilities in 18 states. It agreed to convert its original refrigeration systems to systems using alternative, environmentally friendly refrigerants. The company also agreed to fund an environmental justice supplemental project and pay, about $5 million in civil penalty. Looking further, I was able to dig up a justice.gov archive post about this. Let me just read a little bit through this. According to Washington, D.C., the Justice Department and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency today announced a groundbreaking Clean Air Act settlement with Air Liquide America Corporation to replace refrigerant chemicals that destroy the Earth's stratospheric ozone layer with environmentally friendly alternatives. The United States charged Air Liquide with illegally releasing ozone depleting gases from industrial process refrigeration systems at 22 facilities located in 18 states. The agreement, filed in U.S. District Court in Texas, required Air Liquide to convert all its industrial refrigeration systems now using regulated ozone depleting chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, which have been illegal for some time, by the way, uh, to systems using alternative environmentally friendly refrigerants. The company also will fund an, quote, environmental justice, unquote, supplemental project that will benefit a lower income, predominantly minority community in Louisiana and pay a $4.5 million civil penalty. So I'm guessing there's a bit of discrepancy here between what the official ruling was and maybe some judges, or not judges, some lawyers were able to squeeze out a little bit more money. I don't know. Maybe things changed, but two different sources gave me two different numbers. So I guess for now we'll stick with 4.5 million since that's what's on the record from the government. Quote, Air Liquide's actions are an excellent example of cooperation between a company and the government to find a solution that averts further damage to the ozone layer and involves tangible measures that preserve an undisturbed area of land from future development, unquote, said EPA Administrator Christy Whitman. So, real quick, I'm sorry, but Christy Whitman, I know you're probably not listening, but I'm going to speak to you directly. This is not an example of cooperation between a large corporate entity and the US government. This is an example of somebody getting caught doing what they weren't supposed to, and you guys had to step in and say, no, 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 we're going to make you do your job right, and we're going to make you pay for fucking up. This isn't an example of cooperation. This is an example of punishment being served. Don't confuse the two, because it gives the image that these companies are here to help us when they very much are not. Now, again, I could keep reading more and more of these, but I highly suggest, do your own research. But I'm going to go down here to a section that says the initial DOJ/EPA complaint against Air Liquide alleged violations of the Clean Air Act, including releasing regulated ozone depleting substances into the air, exceeding the annual leak rate of 35% for large industrial cooling systems using CFC refrigerants. Also, 35%, real quick, that's more than a third is allowed to leak according to this document at the time. I don't know if that's changed. I need to do more research on that one. But yeah, more than a third's allowed to just be released. I don't think that's okay. I also don't think that that's efficient. Next bullet point said adding refrigerant containing CFCs to its refrigeration system without testing for, locating, and repairing leaks, failing to capture the CFC refrigerant from the appliances using certified CFC recovery recycling equipment, failing to keep proper records and provide them to EPA, and failing to use an EPA certified technician to maintain, service, or repair the industrial process refrigeration equipment. These are the affected Air Liquide facilities are located in Fairfield, Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska, Tucson, Arizona, Etiwanda, California. I hope I said that one right. Denver, Colorado, Orlando, Florida, Merritt Island, Florida, Savannah, Georgia, Kapolei, Hawaii. Again, I hope I said that right. Plaquemine, Louisiana, Westlake, Louisiana, Madison, Mississippi, East Helena, Montana, Kinston, North Carolina, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, McMinnville, Oregon, Spartanburg, awesome name by the way, Spartanburg, South Carolina, Cleburne, Cleburne, Texas, my bad, Dallas, Texas, Longview, Texas, Vineyard, Utah, and Kent, Washington. A civil settlement is subject to a 30-day comment period and final court approval. Questions about ozone depletion or EPA rules concerning CFCs may be directed to Agency Stratospheric Ozone Hotline, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that was just a brief overview of this case that happened all the way back in 2001. If you didn't catch any of that, the TLDR is the Justice Department and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in June 21st, 2001 announced a groundbreaking Clean Air Act settlement with Air Liquide America Corporation to replace refrigerant chemicals that destroy the Earth's ozone layer, stratospheric ozone layer. That's the small gist. But there is so much more we can dig on that, but digging into law and businesses get very boring very quickly. But there's one more story that is insane that I did not expect to see. And this is the $7 million lawsuit one. Now, to be fair, this was held by a company that was not currently owned by Air Liquide at the time. Um, but I have some opinions about that I'll get to after we cover it. See, back in 2016, May 26, 2016, Airgas Dorel Incorporated was sentenced to a $4.3 million criminal fine, 2 years organizational probation, with a special condition of a hazardous materials compliance program, including an independent monitor and periodic reporting, and was ordered to pay a total of $2.7 million in restitution to the estates of the three stevedores who died from asphyxiation on May 20th, 2008, as a result of exposure to argon gas in the hold of a cargo vessel at Port Everglades in Florida. So yeah, we've got three deaths on this company's hand. According to the Department of Justice, I looked back a little bit before the actual settlement. May 5th, 2016, Wilfredo A. Ferrer, a United States attorney for the Southern District of Florida, and Marlias Gonzalez, special agent in charge, Department of Transportation, of the Office of Inspector General, announced that Airgas Dorel Incorporated pled guilty today before United States District Judge Robert N. Scola Jr. to a 14-count criminal information charging the cor- uh, corporation with willfully and recklessly violating the Hazardous Materials Transportation Act, Title 49, United States Code, Section 5124A, C through D. Uh, Based on its violations of hazardous material regulation and DOT Special Permit 11186. Under the terms of the plea agreement, Airgas Dorel and the government agreed to recommend the imposition of a $7 million fine, 500,000 per count of conviction, to be paid by Airgas Dorel and guaranteed by its corporate parent and 100% owner, Airgas Incorporated, and that Airgas Dorel be subject to a 2-year term probation. Quote, the safe transport of hazardous materials is of paramount importance, unquote, stated U.S. Attorney Wilfredo Ferrer. You know, and we can keep going over this, but it'll be quoted in the next piece from May 26, when they actually pled guilty and are ordered to pay the restitution fees. Um, what was it? Let me scroll down a bit more to see the good stuff. According to count records, Airgas Dorel, a Delaware corporation, is wholly owned by Airgas Incorporated, which is a leading U.S. distributor of industrial, medical, and specialty gases. Airgas Dorel is the successor of interest of former blah blah blah. No, this is just going through more. Here we go. So where was it? Which made shipments of refrigerant possible between March 12th, 2008 and May 14th, 2008, but failed to comply with regulatory and permit requirements for transporting that hazardous material, including training hazardous materials employees and managers at its Miami fill plant on required pre-transportation functions, such as conducting visual inspections of the tanks for deficiencies and the taking of required pressure and temperature readings. These failures came to light when the means of containment of a tank shipped by Airgas South failed to hold of a vessel at Port Everglades on May 20th, 2008, and three stevedores who entered the vessels hold asphyxiated and died. A subsequent investigation revealed the tank's pressure relief devices were corroded, defective, and damaged so as to prevent normal operation. But that since the hazardous material personnel at the Miami fill plant had not received required function specific training, the required inspections had not been conducted, resulting in Airgas South offering for transportation a portable tank that should not have been shipped. So I did a little more research into finding articles at the time related to this so I can see what really, was going on, you know. So I found this article from the Sun Sentinel in South Florida. Uh, Company linked to Port Everglades death admits breaking hazardous materials law. Um, According to their page here, a South Florida corporation that was investigated after an argon gas leak killed 3 men on a cargo ship in Port Everglades could face $7 million in fines after the company pled guilty. Yeah, we know this. Charge was, willfully and recklessly. Yeah, we know this. Come on, where's the other good stuff? So here's what I had a actually hard time finding was the names because I want the victims to be known. I want them to be humanized. Um, and it's already hard enough finding the names, but I literally could not find pictures for these guys or anything. Um, the three stevedores were Heyman Suknanuk, he was 47, of Oakland Park. He was their supervisor. James Kaysen, 43, of Fort Lauderdale, and Rene Robert Duterte Jr., 25, of Wilton Manor. That last guy, as far as I've seen from other articles, Duterte was the last one to die. What had happened was after the gas leak that had exposed the argon into the hole, a lot of ship hands were not wanting to go down there because they were complaining about getting lightheaded and that they couldn't operate. So the plant operator told Heyman that he has to go do it because nobody else was doing it. In which case he had asphyxiated and died. In the process, James Kaysen went in to go help his supervisor, but had also failed. Seeing this, Robert Duterte had attempted to go help, his friends and coworkers. Uh, he actually had bundled up his shirt over his mouth to try to avoid whatever was going on. But argon is an odorless, tasteless, colorless gas. You won't know it's there. And it doesn't directly kill you, but it removes the oxygen from the environment. And he had no way of knowing this, you know, because he wasn't trained. And so, attempting to save his coworkers' lives, he went down there to try to pick them up and realized quickly that he couldn't breathe. So when he climbed out, it said that he fell 20 feet as he fell unconscious and then later died. And it's disgusting. It's horrible that this happened. Like I could spend an entire podcast episode just going over this case alone, but I just can't. It's bad enough that it happened. It's bad enough that I had to cover it in the first episode of these 12 companies, but it's important. And here comes the piece that I wanted to cover real quick that I thought made it important to understand why that even though Air Liquide didn't own this company at the time, I still think that they're at fault for this. Because what you have at the time is an American-made company, an American-run company, completely and solely, have this massive, major case against them. Around this time, like literally only a couple weeks after this case, Air Liquide came in and bought them out and adopted the company as part of their own. But in doing so, you still have Airgas operate in the States. Going to high school, I would take a bus that would pass by an Airgas plant all the time. I'm assuming it was just, I shouldn't say plant. It was an area which I'm assuming just sold a bunch of welding equipment, so it looked like a very small plant, but there was all these tubes, tankers, and everything all the time. This was just right down the lane from my school. I never thought much about it at the time. But knowing this and knowing that they still operate here, even though it's done by Air Liquide, gives the impression that they don't care. That they're okay with operating a company that is willfully negligent. That they're okay with helping this company survive after it fucked up majorly, and that they're okay with these, deaths and these murders instead of just using their other corporations to come in and fill in the gap instead. Now, of course, there's all the economic factors that it's just easier to buy out a company and then reallocate their resources to yourself. I understand that. But there's just something about this that doesn't sit right with me morally. The idea that you have an active death case that cost you $7 million, and you're willing to just say, yeah, no, we're good. We're gonna keep them going. And especially whenever you have people that says like this is a great display of what government cooperation and corporate cooperation can look like. Like no, like these are not good. And I can spend forever just finding every little thing that I want to criticize and critique. But the fact of the matter is that this is a French owned company that operates in 75 countries that, like everyone else, has a history of bad action, that has a history of fines whenever they get caught, that has been costing them millions over the years. They want to brag about things that they're doing, which they're only doing because they can't do the other things that are cheaper but are worse for the environment. They want to brag about complying with these protocols and these measures when they can't do that half the time because it costs them more money. But if you look on their website, they want to feel like they're bragging about being leaders of this. I can tell already that investigating the next 11 companies is going to take just as much of a toll if it's like this. And I really think that it's worth digging more onto their website and seeing what else we can critique, but that's just going to have to be for another time. This has been an emotional roller coaster, if you will, um, but also a learning experience in a way because I've had to learn a lot of new, um, what's it called, ways to search for things online before I found the violations tracker. Uh, but I highly encourage you guys to dig into your own on this, see what else you can find. One thing that I am just not realizing though is that there was one employee related offense that I did not dig into. And I'm kind of curious what happened. Or consumer protection related offense, my bad. So let's take a look at that real quick. Oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Consumer related offense. Come on now. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? Oh man, there's so many small fines here and everything. I can't find it. What was it? 500,000. Right? 500,000? No, 50,000. I was looking in the wrong area. Okay. So we got two for 50,000: workplace safety or health violation, utility service violation. I think it's the utility service violation. Let's look at that one. Utility service violation from Air Liquide directly. Penalty $50,000. Year May 1st, 2015. Yes, the consumer protection related offense. This is primary offense is utility service violation. Secondary offense regulated market violation. Oh, it's about to die. Agency. Yeah, this happened in Texas, but there's no description. Okay, that's interesting. Source of data. I know this is wonderful for all you listeners, just hearing me mumble back and forth and, sucking air through my teeth. Fiscal year 2015. Public Utility Commission of Texas, public notice of 2015 summary of customer complaints and enforcement activities and request for comments. Adopted. Oh. I see graphs. I see a bunch of graphs. Graphs I can't interpret on the spot. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I wanted to dig into this and figure it out, but I don't have time to just throw that one out there. So yeah, if you want to know, definitely check out violationstracker.goodjobsfirst.org, I believe, is what it is. Right. Yeah, goodjobsfirst.org. I said that right. Um, Definitely check it out. Definitely do your homework. Definitely do your research because we need more citizens in the area to be vigilant. And to know that this is one of the 12 that are agreeing to build a large scale CCS plant that we all know doesn't work, that is not economically viable. I don't. It gets under my skin. It gets under my skin that so much incompetence can get by without the public knowing, that so much of these actions can happen and we just brush it under the rug because then we're like, ooh, shiny, look at this because they got something else that they can sell us. It bothers me. I'm sorry. It bothers me a lot. And I hope it bothers you too. I hope it bothers you enough that you want to get up and do something. I hope it bothers you enough that you feel like you have to learn more because you are so out of your element. I hope it disturbs you because I feel like that's what's going to have to happen if we are going to ever make things right, if we're ever going to do things better. You know, I am trying my damnedest to try to raise alarm bells on this because I'm one man currently. And this seems to be a slow moving project, but in time, I'll blink and it'll be up and there will be nothing we can do about it. They would have taken all of our money, they would have taken all of our good labor, and they would have ripped us off and said, sayonara, here's your piece of shit that doesn't work. And that's what I'm wanting to avoid. So I'm hoping if you guys were listening now and got any amount of useful information from this, I hope you guys stick around. I hope you guys are willing to engage more on this. I hope you guys are willing to listen to what I find for the other 11 companies and whatever else comes along the way. You know, this is a long-term discussion on the Houston CCS Alliance, and it needs to be criticized. They boast about having public opinion and support on their side, but they show nothing about it. And right now, as far as I know, I'm part of the public, and my opinion says you're full of shit. But with enough said, I needed to just air this one out a little bit. I don't know why I felt the need to get so emotional, but I feel like not being emotional and just being the guy reading data off sheets just wouldn't have been right. Especially when we just covered that 3 people died because of this company. Especially when we covered the fact that negligence and, cost saving moves to not train people because that costs money. Not using the proper equipment because that costs money. Not updating your stuff to, the regulated standard because that costs money. It's infuriating, you know? But right now, I need to go chill out. I need to go drink some coffee and I need to go embrace outside. I need to go touch some grass. So I hope you guys can do that too. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And just remember, Mama Terra loves you. Have a good one.